early last year, we made the decision, let's do this entirely as an online entity with the focus on delivering to people's doors or also having the option of customers picking up from our storefront in Mundare.
This is the Australian Butchers Guild podcast, brought to you by Meat and Livestock Australia, the podcast for passionate butchers.
G'day meat lovers, welcome to another episode of the Australian Butchers Guild podcast. I'm your host Doug Piper. Well, January's passed and we're already in the second month of the year, so the year is getting away from us. But this year, the ABG are working on a new e-magazine for the Independent Butcher channel. That magazine's going to be covering most things that butchers need to know about. Things like food trends and flavours that we're going to be touching base with our MLA food service team about. They're going to give us a lot of insights into what's going on in restaurants and food service around Australia to help give you that little bit of an edge when it comes to making your value-added products, looking at different types of innovation and value-adding from Australian butchers. And we're going to be speaking to some of Australia's leading industry influencers. They're going to talk about where the trade is going and the industry, and also we're going to find out a lot about market updates and what we can expect to see throughout 2023. There's also going to be a great opportunity for all butchers in Australia. So that's all butchers, apprentices and meat workers that are employed in the meat industry in Australia. So keep an eye out on the ABG socials and your email inboxes all over February, when we'll be launching the new e-mag and how you can get access to your copy of the new e-magazine and find out what's coming up in 2023. First up today, I'm going to be catching up with Ripley Atkinson. Ripley is our Senior Market Information Analyst at Meat and Livestock Australia. God, that's a mouthful, isn't it? Ripley's going to be talking to us about the latest domestic market projections and market updates for 2023. G'day, Ripley.
Thanks for having me on board.
Thanks for coming on, mate. First cattle projections for 2023.
That's it. Yeah. And there's a lot of positivity this year in the national herd growing and slaughter and production increasing. So positive signs across the board for the industry and then more broadly for the red meat sector further down the supply chain.
That sounds great, mate. I'm pretty sure the butchers would love to hear what's going to happen, and a little bit of good news goes a long way, that's for sure.
Too right. So we're forecasting this year in 2023 for the cattle herd to actually grow. It's moving beyond a rebuild, and it's going to reach 28.8 million head, and that's an increase of 4.5% year on year. And then from that, because we're having more cattle in the country, we're seeing increased number of cattle going through processing facilities. So we're expecting slaughter to increase by 6 to 800,000 head to 6.6 million head based on actual cattle supply. And as a result of that, larger numbers of cattle going through those processing plants mean we're going to have increased production. So we're expecting production to rise this year as well, up above 2 million tonnes, and carcass weights historically, which are higher than sort of the 5, 10 and 20-year averages, mean any offsets or lower slaughter volumes are offset by increased carcass weights. So across those sort of 3 or 4 key factors I've just mentioned, there's a lot of positivity around increasing herd size, and we expect that to remain elevated compared to long-term averages for this year and next year. It's going to reach 29.3 million head in 2024, and that really does flow into increased production through higher slaughter numbers, which really promotes obviously more product being available throughout the system and in the supply chain.
Mate, that's brilliant news. What's the main driver due to the increase in the numbers? What do you think there?
As we all know, the weather has been quite wet in 2022 for most Australians, and that has underpinned the increased production and the increased herd numbers we're now seeing across the country. So because producers have grass available, farmers have grass available as a result of the rainfall on their farms, that promotes a higher intention and more demand for producers to retain those animals. And when they do that, they retain more females and they join more females, and reproductive conditions are quite good. So then you have more calves on the ground, and as they grow up and then are turned off, that naturally increases the supply, as we're aware. So because the retention of females and animals on farm over the last few years has been so significant, we're now starting to see the fruits of that labour, if you will, as those numbers increase to such an extent where producers are satisfied to then turn cattle off because their herds have rebuilt and regrown to levels that they were prior to the 2018 2019 drought, where the numbers liquidated and did the opposite to what they're doing now.
Yeah, I remember, it wasn't that long ago, really, was it? It was only a few years ago when we were really struggling to get the numbers and the future was looking pretty grim. But to come back this quickly, Mother Nature certainly has lended a very good hand there.
It definitely has. And this period since 2020, when the drought broke in southeastern Australia, sort of January 2020, this has been the most intense period of retention of cattle in the country's sort of since records have really began. So the herd in 2024-5 will go to its highest level since the 1970s. So that little bit of perspective around how significant the retention of stock's been and how positive and how good the return of rainfall has been for Australian red meat and cattle producers, that's now delivering upon that really intense rebuild. So now we're starting to see those increases in supply, more production, more beef available, et cetera, et cetera.
Brilliant. That'll put a lot of smiles on some faces. So did you cover off carcass weights at all?
Yeah, so carcass weights in 2022, our forecasts have them at 320 kilos, and that's fairly substantially above the 5 and 10 and 20-year averages. And then moving into this year, they're going to decline back to 315 kilos, and then out to 2025, they'll be at 302 kilos. But even at 2025's levels, they're still remaining 10 kilos above the 5-year average. So it really does show that even though carcass weights are forecast to decline, what that means is as slaughter continues to improve, those above average carcass weights really is where we're getting that production increase, and that's just boosting more production because carcass weights are above those longer term averages. And that's also got a lot to do with the number of cattle in Australia that are now recognised as being lot fed or fed grain, and then producers and farmers management and their genetic improvements we're making in the national herd is also contributing to those carcass weights, and that in turn delivers more beef through those processing facilities, and then of course for our butchers around the country as well.
Awesome. We all know the butchers, they prefer a small, well, not a small carcass, but to most butchers in general, they have a standard weight, like a dress weight of around about 200 to 250 would be. Someone would have a spec there that would slot into that area. So that's very good, mate. Price-wise, what are we looking at there?
As naturally, as we all know, the Australian cattle system is really driven by the weather, and like any other sort of market or macro economic environment, the drivers of supply and demand are critical to how the cattle market and prices perform, and then the weather is also such a major contributor to that as well. But with increased supply this year in 2023, following the retention of stock that I spoke about for 2021 and 2022, which actually drove record cattle prices to the highest they'd ever been, that increased supply this year, which will come into the market, means that prices are forecast to decline this year. Although they'll remain above 5 and 10-year averages, they're certainly receding to more longer-term performance levels relative to where we've seen in the last couple of years. As more supply is available, it allows those buyers, which are processors, feedlotters and producers, to have obviously more selection. With more numbers, they're able to be more choosy with what they want, and then that naturally lessens the demand for those cattle because there's more available, and in turn the prices are expected to trend downwards in 2023.
Okay, that sounds great. That'll, again, more smiles on the butchers, and when you come up with news like that, Rip, the butchers love you, mate.
Well, let's hope we can keep providing some good insights for them.
Yeah, mate. That's awesome, mate. Thank you very much for today, and all the great news that you've got, and all the hard work that you do behind the scenes to keep us all informed on what's going on, mate. So we'll look forward to catching up with you again in the near future.
Thanks for having me. It's always great to provide the insights to a really important part of our supply chain, and a really important partner for Australian producers as well. So thanks for having me on board, and look forward to chatting soon.
Always great to find out what's happening in the beef and lamb category. Now we're going to catch up with the Naked Butcher from Mundering, Western Australia, Gary Hine. Welcome, Gary.
Thanks, Doug. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, mate. How's everything going?
Yeah, pretty good over here in the west, in the middle of a hot spell, which is pretty normal for this time of year.
Yeah, you guys have had a pretty hot over the last sort of couple of years, really, haven't you? You've really sort of copped a bit of a flogging with the heat.
Yeah, we always, at the end of January, February, the start of March are our real hot months. Yeah, which always tests everyone out a little bit, and the air conditioners cop a flogging. But we're certainly in a lot better shape than a lot of places that we see over east on the news.
Yeah, it's been relentless over here. Like last year was just absolutely terrible. This year's been, I think, a little bit better, but they're certainly copping a lot of water coming down from up north, down through the Channel Country into South Australia and Victoria. There, I've got cousins up there. They've got a property. It's on the Murray. Luckily, they don't have any livestock on it at the moment. Haven't had for a couple of years, but for one reason or the other, drought was previous. Now it's floods, which is they're lucky they haven't got it on there. But the water is just so high, it's unbelievable. So many towns have lost so much.
Yeah, well, we've got a lot of the same stuff happening over here in the west with the north half of the state up in the Pilbara with the floods that they've got going on up there at the moment. They're saying once in 100-year floods, and for our customers that we send product up sort of north of Karratha, the normal shipping route with the transport companies is just straight up the coast to those guys, whereas now they're going to have to, the trucks have to go across to basically to Adelaide, up the Stuart Highway through the centre of Australia to Katherine, and then across over into Broome that way. So it's adding, I think it's around about 7,500 k's to the trip. Makes you realise the expanses of the country that we've got, that we live in.
That's incredible. So there's no short detour, is there?
No, we've got one road that goes up there, unless they go inland, which, with these floods, because the waters come from north of Queensland, they're all cut off as well. So, yeah.
Well, mate, the Naked Butcher, what's that all about? First of all, we'll just put it to rest. You do wear clothes.
Well, that's our basic policy, but we are open to special requests, mate.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Whatever the customer needs, you know how it is.
Yeah, and you know what butchers are like. They'd be so what do they do? Walk around with just an apron on, or don't they wear an apron, or what? So we put that one to rest now. So what's the Naked Butcher all about, mate?
Okay, we started the business up in 2007. We purchased an existing shop that I'd worked at part time while I was at uni. The lady that we purchased it from had these plans of turning it from an existing butcher shop into a gourmet cheese and deli store. My personal opinion of it, and I conveyed this to her, was that it was never going to happen successfully because we just didn't have the population in our region, in our little area, to support those sort of things. They're a luxury item. You've got to sell a lot of cheese to make $100 sale.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, she was a single mum who really struggled with the hours and that were required to make it work. While I was working there, we had some discussions with her and said, look, I'm looking for a shop to buy. We locked something in place prior to really pulling the trigger on trying to push it back as a butcher shop, which it originally had been. Once that time came and she was out of there, we rebranded it, renamed it, went down the path of a more traditional butcher shop, did a big refit in it about 18 months after we purchased the business. Yeah, the whole store retiled, did the whole lot, repainted, and then ran that as a traditional walk-in butcher shop up until early 2020, when COVID hit. That made us re-evaluate everything.
Why the Naked Butcher? Why did you brand it that way?
We wanted to go down the path of a more natural product.
Uh-huh.
We wanted to go down the path of minimal chemical intervention, a more naturally raised animal or animals, and offering people cleaner, for want of a better word, proteins. It became really difficult to come up with a name to convey what it was that we were all about, because we feel that the name and the branding is crucial to getting your point across to your customers, or your potential customers. So we were scratching our heads at what we were going to call this for weeks and weeks and weeks, and we were driving along in the car one day, and my wife's out of the blue just said, what about the Naked Butcher? What's more natural than being naked? And it was a light bulb moment for all of us, and it was like, wow, that fits the ethos perfectly. So we had that worked out, and then we went, okay, so how do we go? We've got a name. How do we go about branding that would stand out from other retailers who may be somewhere in the same space that we are? So we thought, let's go for colours that are not traditionally linked with butcher shops. Quite often you see the white shop with mainly white with a bit of green trim and all this sort of stuff, So we took ours down the path of being more of a wood grain presentation inside the store and a more rustic look with magenta as being our dominant colour in our signage and promotional material. So yeah, we're really happy with the way those two things are fitted together with a different name, the catchy name, and a different colour that sort of stands out amongst everything else. So long story short, that's how we did it.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, I know the colours well. It certainly does stand out, and you're right. It is not an odd colour, but it's a different colour to use for a butcher shop because, like you said, most butchers, it's like, well, I suppose in the early days, stainless steel tile, white tiles, and it's still. The only thing different these days is you've got the tiles, but they vary from black to white to whatever. Timber's being used a lot these days, more rustic, I suppose, like a lot of brickwork. Even we see a lot of guys, a lot of shops, they've been fitted out and they're using a vinyl wrap. So they they find something, hey, that looks pretty cool. So they get their shop vinyl wrapped in it, and it looks just as good as timber or brick. Sometimes, you've really got to actually go up there and touch the stuff and you go, oh wow, it actually is a vinyl wrap, not a brick or a timber.
I've even seen foam used to make it look like old bricks, and that was so effective and really made everything pop. I think a lot of things these days, and it's not only in stores, but it's also a lot of home stuff and that sort of thing. People are going more back to that rustic look. If you're in a space where you've got a traditional butcher shop, it really ties in nicely. And the days where we only had paint as an option, now you guys have got so many more different options that they can use, and a lot of them are quite cost effective, where you can change the look of your shop relatively inexpensively and continue to rebrand yourself and keep yourself relevant to the market.
It's no longer just a matter of a fresh coat of paint, is it? These days, it's a lot of butchers just doing so many different things, and like you said, the cost-wise, it's an investment still, but it's still keeping that cost down so you can do a little bit more and do something different.
Yeah, for sure. We're all price conscious of everything these days. But if you can give your store a complete new look, it not only freshens up the premises, I always find that it reinvigorates your staff. You may get that way where you feel a little bit stale or tired going to the same premises all the time, but you give it a facelift and that sort of thing, and it sort of sparks up your imagination and gets those creative juices flowing. And then your customers come in and go, wow, I love what you've done to the store, and then it becomes a talking point in the community.
And it's a positive, isn't it? Especially when they're talking about it in the community. Like if your customers love it, they can't wait. Well, hopefully they won't be able to wait to come back there and visit you again,
Yeah, 100%. And that's where the traditional butcher shops have got a real advantage, is having that face-to-face interaction with their customers over the counter. That is customer service. That's traditional butchering, and it's crucial for guys who want to stay in that space.
Yep.
Build those relationships. Tell the stories of where you get your product from. If you buy them direct from a farm, tell the story of the farm. Go and visit your farmers, your producers and suppliers. Continue. It tells all about developing relationships.
And that's one thing that you've found critical to your business is promoting ethically sourced meat. You've had to go out there and find the suppliers, I suppose, and build that relationship with the producers, haven't you? How have you gone about that?
Probably the biggest thing that I've found is always keep your ears and eyes open. There's opportunities everywhere. Even if you talk to someone, and it may be a completely off-subject discussion that you're having, you never know where it's going to lead. Someone knows someone who knows someone, and it all links together. And then you get talking to people, and, you be open and honest with not only your customers, but your suppliers, and you develop relationships from there. You develop that common ground and continue the open dialogue. If something doesn't work for you, sourcing your product from, you need to let your farmer know that. Your customers certainly let you know if you don't get it right. In essence, we're customers of our suppliers. So that feedback to them, and I've never ever had a negative discussion with a producer. They've always been something, and these guys aren't in a retail space. They don't understand. A lot of them don't understand what it is that our customers want from us.
And having that influence over the producer too is good as well. It's good for them as well, because like you said, they then understand what your customers want, which are inadvertently their customers as well. So, it makes sense to listen. Like you said, listening to people, talking to them about what you need is very important.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you have much trouble swapping producers? Like, do you stick to the same ones all the time, or you're quite happy to rotate through a variety of different producers?
I generally try and stay with the same guys that we've been using for quite a fair period of time. A, because they know what we want. B, because I know their product. And if there is an issue somewhere along the line, I know that I can jump on the phone and go, look, there's a problem here. It's always hard when you start a new relationship with any sort of producer or any supplier to end up working on the same page. Ideally, you'd like to source everything from the one place and everything was honky dory every single time, But we're not working with an exact science here.
It's exactly the same, like as you said, with your normal suppliers, with your carton suppliers. Those wholesalers there. You build up that relationship. They know what you want. You know what they've got. You trust their brands that they sell. It's exactly the same thing, isn't it? Just that you're doing it minus that little step in between using the wholesaler. You're the actual go, but you are the person talking to the producer.
And what you're saying there about branding is huge. If you can talk to your customers over the counter or however you communicate as a retailer to your customers and tell the story of the brand that you're sourcing and why you source that brand, and your relationship with the owner of that brand. That's huge. That builds confidence all the way along the line.
Yeah, the provenance of the product is just so crucial today. It has been for a while, but over the events of the last couple of years, people are, and we've said it before, they're more into what they're actually putting into their bodies, what they're eating, where did it come from, all that side of it. So the provenance side of it is very, very important to a brand.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everyone these days is so educated about climate change and food miles and all this sort of stuff, and biodegradable products. The whole world, we're in a real transition period, and I see it as a huge opportunity for retailers to be able to be a little bit proactive and look at it and go, how can I make my business work better and fit into these things? It gives you a selling point, and you'll end up picking up customers who are like-minded, and they'll go, wow, here's a guy who's not sourcing product out of a box that comes out of North Queensland to sell in Western Australia or wherever, So the food miles on that product is down. The carbon footprint is a lot less. They're purchasing straight from a farm that's 150 kilometres away. Or my other option is I go to a supermarket where everything is pre-packed and it's come out of Victoria or New South Wales and shipped across to WA.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer, isn't it?
But people, don't get me wrong, people still do buy on a price point.
Oh, for sure. That's our biggest, well, I suppose from a retail butcher's point of view, that is the biggest barrier there is, because if, you think about it, especially today, I suppose, when you've got high mortgage rates, kids are going back to school, the average weekly wage only goes so far. So for them to go into a butcher shop and buy their meat, obviously it's going to be unknown what they're going to spend. So if they go to a supermarket, they can see, okay, I've got $50 to spend, I can buy that's $49 or whatever, $50, and there's no embarrassment there. There's nothing. It's not unknown to them. They can walk up to the checkout, pay it, and it's done. Whereas in a butcher shop, unfortunately, they don't have. In a lot of cases, they don't have that luxury of being able to know what the end price is going to be, and sometimes it could be a little bit embarrassing for the customer. And I suppose the beauty of it is that butchers have got a pretty bloody big heart, really, when you think about it, and they'd probably say, look, just drop it in next time you're here, or that'll be close enough, sort of thing. But people don't understand that. It's something that I think doesn't go on a lot these days, where business owners actually give something away. Butchers have probably their own worst enemies in some respects. They've always given something either to the customer or the community for nothing. But yeah, you won't get that out of a supermarket, that's for sure. How do we get that message to the customers?
When we had our shop front open, we used to have people come in and they say, oh, I want a sirloin and I want it cut like 4 inches thick. Yeah, no problems, mate. I can do that for you. So you go and do it and you drop it on the scale. Oh, how much a kilo is it? Oh, whatever the price is, and you drop it on the scales and go, oh, it's too much. It's like, what do you want?
Yeah, exactly. So your whole business, you turned it on its head around about 2 years ago. You took a real gamble with what you did by doing what you did. Tell the listeners what you did, mate.
It was a massive upheaval in our whole business model. It was, we dropped everything at 180 degrees on its head. We'd run our store as a traditional butcher shop for 14 years. We'd also, over that journey, developed a customer base where we'd deliver. So for guys or anyone who knows Perth, we deliver from Butler in the northern suburbs down as far south as Mandurah. It's a huge catchment area. We do 3 different delivery runs a week. So north of the river is on Wednesdays. Then we do our central run, which is from Mundaring down to South Street, goes to Fremantle. And so we do there to the southern side of the Swan River and the local area on Thursdays. And then we do our south run on Fridays, which is down inland a little bit, Byford, Jarradale, Pinjarra, across to Mandurah, and then pick up all the suburbs back on the way to Perth as we head back towards the hills. So We'd already had those runs established. We had a customer base established, so we were really fortunate when COVID came and we went into lockdowns. Not as bad as you guys had it, but we did have restrictions of trade and stuff like that over here as well. So my daughter and wife were saying to me for years, actually, you can't keep doing 80 hours a week at the bench. Your body's telling you got to stop. And I was like, no, I'm okay. I'm enjoying doing this. Leave me alone, sort of thing, you know. When COVID came, that's when they really started pushing me that, look, why don't we shut the shop front and look at going 100% online? And I was like, oh, God. When we did that refit, we spent, around about $130,000 refitting our store. So we decided when COVID hit, we were one of the first retailers in WA, actually, where we pulled the roller shutter down on the front of the shop and put it out to everyone that we were now going to be a 100% online entity, so no shop front for customers to walk into anymore. We kept all our infrastructure, so our cabinets and uprights and everything in place up until September last year. I had to be confident in myself and trusting enough that this was going to work, and I kept all that stuff in place just in case it didn't. All right, so it made it really, really difficult. So we were still getting carcasses delivered to the store. We still do, and even to this day, we still do everything that we used to do in store. It's just that we don't have a shop front these days. So what we do is get carcasses in, age them, bone them out, process them, and then we vacuum pack, label, and freeze them. So then every day, whatever production we did at the store, we'd run home. I've got a 30 cubic metre freezer at home. So I'd bring all that product home, stack it all in the freezer and rotate it. All right. And then the next morning have to get up and then pick that product back out for whatever orders we had coming through our online store and take back up to the shop. So we did that for 18 months. It was a lot of double handling. It cost us hours and hours and hours every week. It was a really tough slog. Our online store went that successfully that, early last year we made the decision, let's stick with this and we do this entirely as an online entity with the focus on delivering to people's stores or also having the option of customers picking up from our storefront in Mundaring. All right, so the way that works is they place their order online. They give us a call when they get a notification that we've received the order. They get a notification when the order's complete and ready to pick up. They give us a call when they get to the shop and we take it out to them. Okay. The home delivery thing has continued to grow beyond my expectations. And again, it can be contactless. We quite often like having a chat to our customers. We still need to find a way to communicate with our customers and put a face to the business, I suppose, especially for the new ones who didn't come in and experience us when we had the shop front open. We do our weekly deliveries. We offer free delivery to all our customers in the Perth metro area on orders over $200. We don't deliver anything under $100, and between $100 and $200, there's a $25 delivery fee.
Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, you would have lost a few customers because of that, because you had to have a minimum spend there, or have they been able to sort of consolidate themselves and say, okay, well, I'll just buy 2 weeks worth of meat or 3 weeks worth of meat? Yeah.
And if anything, we quite a few where their order would consistently be around that $170 mark every week, every fortnight, where theirs now is $210.
That's good.
So they get that free delivery. At the end of the day, guys, have got to be, we need to get a little bit selfish and go, it's not all about the customer. The customer can adapt a little bit to us as well.
Right.
I no longer do 80-hour weeks in the butcher shop.
What are you doing now?
My normal week now is I'll get up at whatever time in the morning I wake up and feel like it, and I can go up to the shop and smash orders and get as many done as I feel like. And then my staff turn up at usually 6 or 7 in the morning, and then I can just hand over to them and say, okay, this is what we need to get done today, guys, and away they go. We've got a delivery driver, so the days that we're Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I quite often try to get up there and have the truck loaded for him. He rocks up and he's given a folder with all the orders in delivery order.
Yep.
He jumps in the truck and away he goes. So it's streamlined everything.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like you've got everything in line, like from the ordering system right through to you obviously putting the orders together and getting them out there, because I think one of the big things is communication. When you were talking about how you communicate with the customer when they put an order in, it reminded me of buying something on eBay or online, because as soon as you put your order in, you get a confirmation to say that your order's been received, and then they send you another one later on, I think, when it's been dispatched and blah, blah, blah. So I think that's a crucial thing to remember, is that communication. Like if you've got an online delivery service, if you haven't already got it, hey, it's a very reassuring thing, because there's nothing worse. And I know it's happened to me. I've bought stuff online and there's crickets until it arrives on your door, and in the meantime you're looking at the date. Every day goes past and, geez, he's got my money. I wonder if I'm going to get it.
Yeah, especially with the amount of scams and that's going on at the moment as well.
Yeah.
It's really important that you use a platform that is secure, well-known and well-respected. We run ours through a platform called Shopify. It's really user-friendly. It gives you all your data that's running along in the background, your average sale, customer spend patterns, your better-selling products. If you link products together, how the sales for those products have been affected, either positively or negatively, which I found really handy, because now with our weekly specials, we're putting together combo packs. We'll do just for instance, a chicken breast and a chicken mince special. Reduce the price of that one purchase by whatever amount we want to, because they're two products that link together well. Your customers will look at it and go, oh, well, yeah, I can use the chicken mince for nachos. It's going to be 32 degrees at 5 o'clock this afternoon. I'm not going to feel like cooking a whole chook, And then I've got my chicken breast that I can use for stir fry or schnitzel or whatever I feel like later on. We call them combo packs. They're quite an effective way of marketing product that you want to shift, and you know are good sellers.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of butchers recently. They've been doing a bit online with the different types of combo packs. So they must be. They were very popular, I think, in the 80s, I believe. Might have been, you'd always go to a butcher shop and you had some sort of pack there, and then they've gone away. But you're starting to see that coming back more and more. They're more popular, so you see a lot of guys on their social platforms with the different types of packs they've got. So they're obviously working.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when we had our shop front open, we used to do stir fry packs, and these were on an 11 by 9 tray. You'd have a plastic tray, and sitting on top of that one that you'd wrap, and you'd have your stir fry veggies cut up, and then you'd have your meat marinated there, and then you'd have your pack of noodles. I'm not a big fan of all of the stir fry veggies and marinated meat and everything getting thrown in the one bowl. When you cook it, it just goes to mush.
Yeah.
But that was a stir fry pack, and people would come and grab them. You'd have different flavors, with different proteins in it, and they work great.
That whole stir fry thing is still very popular. Stir fries, like we get a lot of stats through from Australian Beef website, and we can look at the analytics there, and we can see what the customers are actually, or what the shoppers are looking at, the recipes they're looking at, and stir fries are quite high up on the list. So, I think back to what I've seen around on my travels, and some of the larger supermarket chains in the US, they have a stir fry. They have a section there with all freshly sliced vegetables to suit a stir fry, to suit a salad, to suit a casserole or whatever. So having that individually packaged or available separately, rather than, like you said, mixed with the marinade and the meat, and then you cook it turns to slop. It adds value to the meal, because it's all going to be fresher. It's not going to be all mixed up together, being sitting in a tray for hours on end, coming out like pretty ordinary.
Yeah, and I mean, stir fry is one of my pet hates with a lot of butchers, because they just cut that meat incorrectly. They don't do that nice big thick cut and then get that flat, almost rectangular sort of shape to it. They're more cutting it like your little finger. The idea with a stir fry is you have your wok nice and hot, you throw your meat in there and toss it around a couple of times, and then you add the rest ingredients to it. Whereas you put something in there like that really thick, almost elongated piece of diced beef. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out that's just going to stew. And if you're going to try and eat that a couple of after being in the wok for 30 seconds and that sort of thing, it's just not going to perform. And then your customers have a bad experience, and they go, well, I'm not going back there.
And you look at the chefs that do promote doing a stir fry or whatever sort of a thin sliced dish. They tell you to only cook X amount of meat in the pan at one time. Otherwise, like you said, it'll stew. Just take that out, put it aside, and do the next lot, and then combine it all together. So, it makes sense. It certainly makes sense. It was easy back in the 70s. We used to do that because that was the only sort of value adding that we had when I first started in the early 80s and 70s. It was like, oh, what are we going to do? Let's do a stir fry. Okay, well, we could buy all the veggies already sliced, which was great. That was innovative back then. And then we'd just get the Mongolian lamb or whatever marinade it was, throw it all in together, mix it up in a bucket, pour it into the tray, and out it goes. And everyone loved it. Stir fries were new to them. A lot of people had never eaten it before. Actually, a lot of people didn't even eat a lot of Chinese back then. But now, with immigration and the Asian influence that we have here, these are the sort of things that butchers need to jump on and do it well. That's where you're going to win.
You can do a roast pack with all your veggies and stuff in it.
Yep.
With an option of a lamb roast or a beef roast or a chicken roast or whatever the case may be. There's those things. You can do a casserole pack. There's no reason. There's nothing stopping you.
Pick your seasons, pick the times, pick the product. That's the main things. Now, you look at those meal kit companies that are out there now. There's quite a few of them now. They're taking a big slice of the butcher's business away from them because they're doing it exactly the way that you just said. They've got a meal pack there. That's another opportunity where butchers can sell the freshness because it's produced in-house. You have a relationship with the local fruito, which there's not too many of them around, unfortunately, but you can get suppliers there like your big broadline food service companies. They actually have those relationships there where they're buying pre-sliced vegetables or stir-fry veggies or whatever, and that you can buy them through them. So there's all those sorts of opportunities there, mate, aren't there?
Oh, yeah, and the big thing is promote it. I see all these food companies popping up, and there's the ready-made meals in a box and all this sort of stuff, and we got a bit inquisitive about it one time when we tried one of these companies, and the amount of packaging that came out of it, it blew my mind. Why are you wrapping all of this stuff, Butchers have got an opportunity to get out there and say, look, we can provide you with the same thing with a third of the package.
Speak to your strengths. Promote yourself. Promote your strengths. And that's the butchers that are doing that are so successful. They're really doing a great job out there. The people just keep on coming back to them because they promote themselves so well. And doing little things like that, like cutting back on packaging, it's an environmental thing. And that's where we're getting back to that whole, the provenance environment and all that sort of side again. Anything else you want to talk about, mate?
I think a lot of guys these days too need to embrace social media. The demographics of our customer base are changing so much. We have an aging population. The people who used to come and do their shopping in your stores are probably getting to that age now where they may be starting to become a little bit incapacitated, where they can't come and do that as often, and embrace. Whereas the younger generation have grown up with technology, so they are so savvy with what's going on. We've got a Facebook page, an Instagram page, and we also run a mailing group from our website. On our Facebook page, I think we're somewhere around about 3,400 people follow us on Facebook. I don't invest a huge amount of faith in Instagram. It's too far reach. It's not the sort of thing that'll target an area where you're trying to service. And then with our mailing group, I think we've got nearly 7,500 customers signed up to that.
So how often do you communicate with your customers with that mailing group?
Generally once a week. We do weekly specials every week, and we generally try and flick that out on a Sunday morning. Yeah, and that's a really good tool. Obviously when things like COVID hit and that sort of thing, we made some massive changes to our business, which affected a lot of people. We were more proactive with getting that information out to everyone. We try and keep it really basically simple, because I think if you try and make it too complicated and too over the top too regularly, people tend to zone out a little bit.
Yep.
But quite often it is just that. Or if we're doing a thing like we recently donated some packs to one of the local wildlife rehabilitation places, and then sold tickets through our website. Raised, I think from memory, was about $2,800 for those guys, which they basically, it's all they had to do was get a license to sell the tickets. We did the rest of it for them. Getting that out there and people would see that, it's a feel-good story,
Yeah.
Gives them the warm fuzzies. Oh, these guys do give back,
Well, mate, it's been really great to catch up with you again. It's been a few years since I've actually seen you, and we speak reasonably regularly on the phone, but it's always good to have a chat with you and find out what you're doing. And it's so good to hear that by taking that big gamble, it's paid off by sort of shutting down your shop front and then just totally focusing online. And obviously you've learnt shitloads since doing that, and your customers now, that just takes another job off the list of things to do throughout the week. They don't have to go shopping for meat. They can get it delivered to their door. All the very best for the rest of the year, and I look forward to catching up with you when I get over there later on in the year.
No worries, mate. Sounds good.
Good on you, Gary. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Doug. Bye.